Capitol Report is a production of Senate Media Services.
This week, the author of a bill to codify access to abortion and other reproductive care explains why. And we meet the newly elected Senate author of the just passed bill that would help unemployed Iron Rangers. Plus, the governor and Senate DFLers outline education priorities. Stay tuned for this week's Capitol Report. Welcome to this week's program. I'm Shannon Loehrke. Senate File 1, a bill intended to ensure a right to abortion and other reproductive care in the state, has been making its way through various Senate committees, eliciting members of the public to offer testimony.
We needed an abortion to save my uterus, and we had very little time to process all that was happening. We were required to do many unnecessary tasks, and that added to our grief and the mental load that we were already experiencing. It wasn't easy to find an abortion when we needed one, but I was able to get one, and it saved my uterus, and ultimately I was able to complete my family.
A mother's reproductive health care rights do not supersede the right to life of the separate human being living in her womb. An embryo, a fetus, a preborn baby, all terms used to describe a genetically distinct separate human being, separate from the mother. I have a daughter who has a son, my grandson, who's going to be 3 years old this month, was 21 weeks gestation when he developed a problem that required in utero surgery. He had his own separate labs drawn. He had his own separate medical chart. It was a separate live human being that did well and had life-saving surgery.
Senate File 1 is deceptively straightforward, but it is very problematic. I believe it will limit the conscience rights of providers. It will also interfere with the provision of resource options such as perinatal hospice care, and will limit prenatal information regarding the availability of care and support for individuals with Down syndrome.
I experienced a life-threatening postpartum hemorrhage, the #1 cause of maternal mortality worldwide. I could have died, and many do in my circumstance. No one should have to consent to risks like that against their will. Contraception fails and complications develop. Termination of pregnancy will always be an important part of reproductive health care.
Nothing in this bill does anything to promote life. Nothing in this bill promotes advancing the relationship. Rather than voting for a bill like this, I think that you should spend your time that lifts both lives up through adoption, through foster care, through proper prenatal care.
What a reported 99% of abortion patients have in common is the feeling of relief post-procedure, not regret, even 5 years later. And in the case of my own abortion, enabled me to more easily leave a physically abusive and violent partner. That day, I did choose life, my life.
Senator Jennifer McEwen, the Senate author of the PRO Act, now joins me in the studio. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's start with a little context. This program, in particular, will air on Sunday, January 22nd, 2023. That is 50 years to the day since Roe v. Wade was decided. Then almost 6 months ago to the day, on June 24th, Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. During these 50 years, it seems that the question never really has been settled. Can it be settled?
Well, I think I don't know the answer to that question. It's an excellent question. I think that what we do know, however, is that the fall of Roe v. Wade, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, has resulted in some grave injustices around the country. While much of the world, most of the world, has moved toward expanding reproductive freedoms and reproductive rights, reproductive access and justice, unfortunately, we've seen our country take steps backwards. And now we have a patchwork of laws throughout our country where some states do not recognize that people have these fundamental rights and have outlawed certain types of reproductive care. They've initiated the ability to have civil suits between citizens, have people policing each other's behavior. It's a really scary landscape for people who are needing to seek abortion care in particular. But it's a threat to all of our individual rights at a deeper level. So on the question of whether it's going to be settled, I mean, I'd like to see it be settled. I'd like to see us settle at a place where we respect individuals' autonomous rights to make their own healthcare decisions that are best for them.
In committee, when you presented this bill, you called it common sense. It is a very short bill. It's only one page. What would the PRO Act, the Protect Reproductive Options Act, do?
Yeah, so it's exactly right. It's a very short bill. It's quite concise. What the Protect Reproductive Options Act, or the PRO Act, does is it places into our statutory law, so the law that is written by the legislature, what is already acknowledged to be the law by our courts in Minnesota. So previously there was a Minnesota Supreme Court decision, the Gomez decision, in which the Minnesota Supreme Court recognized that here in Minnesota we have a right to access reproductive health care, including abortion care, that is one of our rights under our state constitution in Minnesota. However, having seen what happens with the changing of the makeup of a court, we saw that at the Supreme Court level. We've seen it recently in Iowa and other states. Those changes can happen fairly quickly, depending on how an election would go. So I think over this past year especially, we've heard from Minnesotans that we don't want our fundamental rights in the state of Minnesota to be resting on the whims of a court in the changing makeup of what a court might decide their interpretation of our rights in our own state constitution may be. So what the PRO Act does is enshrine those rights also into our state statutes, with the legislature recognizing that Minnesotans have these rights. It's just another safeguard and another bulwark to prevent a rogue court from coming in and saying, sorry, you don't have these rights, we're going to take them away from you. We're trying to prevent that from happening in Minnesota.
And when it comes to this issue, what people often are talking about is abortion, but it is more comprehensive than that, because we're also talking about contraception, family planning, maternity care, sterilization, counseling. So it's broader. And can you just say a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. We all know that reproductive care, there's a spectrum of reproductive care. And what the bill recognizes, again, is that these are very personal, individual decisions that people make in their lives about the way that they wish to proceed with their reproductive health, whether they want to have children, when they would want to have children, all the circumstances around that. And people need to be able to make those decisions without the interference of politicians placing their own values and their own ethics and beliefs and religious philosophies above those of individual Minnesotans, and trying to tell individual Minnesotans that they think they know best and that they're going to tell them how they should proceed in any certain situation. Each situation is unique for people who are pregnant, and the way that they decide to proceed with a pregnancy or with decisions out of pregnancy about their reproductive care. Again, those are very individual decisions that politicians really have no business sticking their nose in for other people.
There may be medical professionals, and I know there are because some testified in the committee, who object to abortion as a matter of conscience or religious belief. If this bill were to become law, does it impact them as individuals, and does it impact institutions that have religious affiliation?
That's a great question. No, this bill doesn't change any of the laws that are in place right now. And there was a question that has come, is this sort of redundant? Because what it does is, and the question is a good one, is this redundant? Because we already have all these rights. And this doesn't change anything in the landscape that we have right now in terms of what people's reproductive freedoms are here in Minnesota. What it does is just codify them into our state statute. So people who have personal beliefs that inform them that they don't wish to participate in providing abortion care, those people can still make those decisions the same that they do now. Nothing will change that. Same with the same thing for institutions who have a religious affiliation that steers them toward a certain direction and limiting choices for people about their reproductive care. That is, if they're able to do that now, this doesn't change that. But again, and I think it's really important for people to know, this law doesn't force anything on anybody. That is the point of the law, in fact. The point of the law is that no one should be able to coerce or make somebody have an abortion. Nobody should be able to coerce or make somebody be pregnant and carry a pregnancy to term if that's not what they are deciding that they want to do. So this is all about trusting Minnesotans to make their own healthcare decisions in reproductive healthcare.
Opponents of the bill say that this bill is too extreme in that it would allow a pregnant person to receive a late-term abortion for any reason. Those opponents believe then that the government should at least provide guardrails to protect a viable fetus. How do you respond?
I think that what is really extreme is to have politicians who are not trained in medicine, who are placing their own beliefs about what is right and wrong, about when life begins, about the values that they bring to the conversation, and imposing those values and beliefs on all Minnesotans. That is what is extreme. What is also extreme is having seen a Supreme Court cast off the precedent of decades upon which our laws were founded. What is also extreme is seeing our country go in an opposite direction than all of our peer nations throughout the world in retracting rights instead of broadening them and expanding them. So I reject that premise that this is extreme. This is not extreme. It doesn't change the law, again, in Minnesota. This merely codifies what is currently the law in Minnesota.
Just briefly before we go, because any law can be changed and constitutional rulings can be overturned, would you like to see a clearly written constitutional amendment passed by Minnesotans that would protect reproductive options?
Well, I personally, on a personal note, I would say yes, I would love to see that. But I also am very aware that there's a lot of work happening right now around the country in different states. I don't know if that is something that is on the table in terms of what advocates in Minnesota and people who are working on these issues in Minnesota have in mind in the near future, but I guess we'll just have to stay tuned.
Senator Jennifer McEwen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
The governor's full budget proposal for the coming biennium is due January 24th. This week, he revealed the education portion of his budget. Some highlights of the plan include adding inflation to the education funding formula, providing free meals to kids in public schools, reducing the cross subsidies in special education and for English learners, and increasing support personnel for students. Senate education chairs and key DFLers promoted their education initiatives at a media event.
One of the exciting things that I had an inspiration for over this summer was to use some of that surplus dollars to backfill the cross subsidies, both in EL and special ed, and then to also look at how we can assist in transportation costs, because especially in greater Minnesota, those transportation costs are just exorbitant and cripple our schools and their general fund. And then we want to make sure that our kids leave school with a full tummy.
If COVID taught us anything, it's that we've lost touch with the holistic child. And if my tenure as chair of the policy committee, I want people from Seattle and St. Augustine and Santa Fe in this great nation, when looking and they're starting young families and they're looking at states they're thinking about moving to. Let's let them look at Minnesota. Let's let Minnesota be that state that, oh my God, they educate their kids and they passionately educate them and they develop a holistic experience in their schools.
I am proud to support and be the chief author of SF 123, which will provide universal lunches and breakfast for students in public schools. This is a problem we can solve. We've been hearing from school districts across the state that the student lunch debt is getting out of hand. We can't sleep on this problem anymore.
We have heard from parents and administrators and school officials and teachers that we need to fully fund special education, and I am deeply proud to be the chief author of SF 28, which will fully fund special education. It is about time that we do this for our students.
Student to counselor ratio is unacceptable. The hope is 250 to 1 ratio, and right now I think the state average is around 700 to 1 ratio, and so it's just unacceptable.
Freshman lawmaker Senator Grant Hauschild has wasted no time since winning the election to the Iron Range's Senate District 3. With strong bipartisan support, a bill he authored to extend unemployment benefits to some workers in the iron ore mining industry has already passed the Senate.
Part of the story as well is you've got a couple billionaires fighting with each other. You've got the mining company and you've got the trust that owns the mineral leases, and I think that played into the decision as to why this mine was chosen to close. I think part of that is unfortunate. It is also mentioned that these employees got caught in the crosshairs of what's happening, and that's absolutely unfortunate, and we are doing the right thing today to help these miners out.
Just a few numbers, just so people understand the scale of what folks in Babbitt and Silver Bay are going through. The population of the city of Babbitt is 1,385. The population of Silver Bay is 1,858. And added together, that's slightly over 3,000 people in those two cities where this mine and the processing plant are located, which means that anywhere between 410 and 490, depending on who's been called back and who's been laid off, are out of work.
When I was running for this office and this layoff and idling occurred, you could feel the anxiety in our communities. For those of you on the committees that this bill came before, you heard from the mayor of Silver Bay talk about the impact, not just on the communities and the mine workers themselves, but our schools, our hospitals. You also heard from the chamber, a local chamber president in our region, talk about the impact on businesses. You heard from a steel worker talking about the perspective from labor and miners about what this does to our workforce and to our workers and their families. And lastly, you heard from a retired North Shore miner who has family members who are part of this layoff. It is really important that we pass this piece of legislation to give that piece of hope to our miners in the Iron Range.
Senator Grant Hauschild now joins me in the studio. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
As you and others said on the floor, if this bill passes the House and the governor signs it into law, it will do a lot for the impacted communities on the Iron Range. This unemployment extension is not a first, as you yourself have said, and perhaps will not be the last. Is an extension of unemployment benefits simply a Band-Aid at this time?
It's not, and I'll tell you why. First and foremost, in previous mining layoffs, it has usually been due to some global headwinds in the steel industry. In this particular case, we're dealing with demands for pellets for Cleveland Cliffs. And in the North Shore mine, they have a really high quality pellet that can go into complexities there, but basically the demand for those high quality pellets is a little bit lower right now. We've been told by Cleveland Cliffs that they will hopefully be reopening in April. And so this extension was really a lifeline to these workers to make sure they stay in their local communities and that they can get back to work in the area that they're proud to work in.
Minnesota is a large and diverse state, and of course the Iron Range is very unique and an incredibly important part of our state. Mining is a volatile industry, mining at large. Is the volatility piece simply a part of the industry, maybe not in this particular case, but in a broader case? Is there anything that can be done to make mining jobs more stable? And just a bigger picture, what is your vision for your region?
Yeah, so here's what I'll say. There is some volatility in the mining industry. but we know that demand for steel and rare earth minerals is only going to increase, especially as we continue looking at the green economy. My vision for our region is to look at technologies like iron air batteries, solar. We know that helium is in mountain iron on the Iron Range, producing solar panels. We have a lot of opportunities to use the unique minerals and mining that we have in northeastern Minnesota to really advance those technologies and to put them right in our region because of the access to those minerals. So I look forward to advancing those different technologies and using the IRRB to invest in those types of things, and hopefully state investments as well.
You've taken over the seat for Senator Tom Bach, who is a former DFL majority and minority leader. He was an independent caucus towards the end there. The Iron Range used to be a DFL stronghold, but it appears that has changed over the last few years, and your election was very close. How has your district changed in recent years?
Well, let's not forget that it wasn't that long ago that the Minnesota GOP was talking about a red wave across the Iron Range, and that just didn't happen. The reason that didn't happen is because we were talking directly to voters and talking about sort of staying out of the extremes, staying out of that nonsense that we see in our politics too much these days, and focusing on the bread and butter issues that matter to our families, to our workers, and to our future children. And that was really my focus, and I think that resonated with people, this idea that we don't want a one-party-fits-all type of mentality. And my district isn't just the Iron Range. It's the North Shore. I live in Hermantown, where I was a city councilor. It's a diverse and very large district that has different interests. And so we just made sure to communicate to all of those different regions and talk about the issues that mattered.
You have a variety of professional experience in your background. What compelled you to take this moment to run for the Senate?
When I was a city councilor in Hermantown, I was advocating for my community at the state level on things like local government aid that would help us hire more cops on our streets. I was advocating for bonding projects that would help with a community recreation initiative in my community. And then that gridlock happened, the stop, and nothing was getting done. And so right around that time, my predecessor announced that he'd be retiring. And a lot of people came to me and said, you did a lot of advocacy for our community on these sort of state level issues. We think you'd be a great senator. And so I looked around and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. And it worked out, and now we're doing the good work for our district.
You have a seat on the tax committee, and one of the issues that you ran on, according to your campaign website, was the elimination of state taxation on Social Security. Hearings on that topic are already underway. Do you personally favor a complete exemption or a partial exemption so that, the high earners are still paying some? And then would the state need to make up that revenue someplace else?
I do support a full elimination of the tax on Social Security, but I also want to add that we added in a public pension for our cops and firefighters and some of our public employees. So we got to make sure that there's equitable reductions in taxes for both of those Social Security and public pensions that don't have access to Social Security. I will say that I don't think we need additional revenue. We know that we have, almost an $18 billion surplus. Some of that is one-time money, but a substantial amount, around $5 to $6 billion, is ongoing. And so there is room for us to provide this relief for our seniors, keep them in Minnesota, keep them spending in our state, and calling this place home for the rest of their lives. So I look forward to advancing that legislation in the state Senate.
The cost of health care strains many family budgets, and you work for a foundation that raises money for people who are struggling to afford the health care that they need. As a new lawmaker, as someone who's worked with patients and with fundraising, how would you like to see the issue of high prescription drug prices and expensive health care costs tackled at the legislature?
I'm really focused on our rural healthcare access. That's something that I have, looked at a lot during the campaign, touring different critical access hospitals, talking to residents about the need for emergency management services and rural ambulance. I am focused on getting that funding for our rural healthcare. I want to make sure that if folks have minutes or seconds that matter, if their spouse has a heart attack, or if someone is in need of critical care in these rural areas, that they have that access. So that's really my focus when it comes to healthcare. How are we ensuring that our critical access hospitals stay open? How are we ensuring that rural ambulance is affordable and available for our residents?
Is that point resonating with your caucus because, you know, generally DFL is sort of centered in metro areas. You're coming from a very large and you know, there's wide distances. Mm-hmm. What do you say to your colleagues to really make the point that rural access is important?
Absolutely. This is a key priority for our caucus. We know that there's been a special task force put together for rural emergency management services led by a representative in the DFL caucus in the House. I've been in touch with many of the leadership about this issue, and I think we're going to find some solutions this session.
Just quickly before we go, there are big changes in the Senate, and one of those, by my very rough count, is there are at least a dozen new lawmakers who have young, I shouldn't say new, just a dozen lawmakers at least, who have young children at home. You were among this group. How might this demographic shift impact policy going forward?
Yeah, you know, it's a little cliche to say, but becoming a father changed my entire perspective. I started thinking more about the future. I started thinking about the type of opportunities that we're providing our kids in Minnesota, and we're a state that's known for doing that. And so I want to make sure we're investing in education. I'm introducing the bill that's going to provide child care tax credits. The governor just announced, you know, that idea yesterday. And so I look forward to championing child care tax credits, paid family leave for our families, and education funding so that we can make sure all kids have opportunities they need and that we're the best state in the country for raising a family.
Senator Grant Hauschild, it has been a pleasure. Welcome to the Senate. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We leave you this week with some of the latest photos by our Senate photographers, AJ Olmscheid and Michelle Jokinen. Join us again next week as we delve into more topics affecting Minnesotans. I'm Shannon Loehrke, and on behalf of all of us at Senate Media Services, thanks for watching.